Coming to you from inside the suites at Globe Life Field, two Rangers broadcasters who come on your TVs every day of the season to talk about the Rangers. Now they're putting down their broadcast mics to pick up the podcast ones because they are still talking Rangers.
Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of Still Talking Rangers. It's been a couple weeks, but we're still talking Rangers.
Still talking.
Yeah. We've been talking about Alejandro Osuna. We've really been talking about him for a few months because he had a great spring training, and you never know what to make of a guy who has a great spring training because it could mean nothing, could mean something, but there was something about the way he played. Like, forget the results. Just sometimes you see a guy and you're like, yeah, he belongs, and I feel like that's the feeling we had watching him this spring.
Yeah, right. That it factor, those intangible things that you can say, way a guy carries himself or whatever. But it's just one of those things that just when you know. And I don't think guys can fake it either. You want to. I'm sure there are times where guys want to. Like, I need to come off as a little more in charge, a little more confident. Okay, you can't pull it off. You either are or not. And Osuna, whatever it is, he's got it. He's just got it. There's a real sense of belonging, a real sense that nothing that he's witnessing or participating in is beyond him. He keeps it pretty simple. And man, there is a real strength in that. This game is so mental, and guys who can keep it simple for themselves. They've got a big advantage. But he's also, by the way, kind of like really athletic. He's super strong. His shoulders, every once in a while we run into people who have like really impressive broad shoulders. My goodness, he is something.
If he played basketball, he'd be really good at setting screens. You'd have a tough time getting around him. And he's not, he's not a big guy, right? Like height-wise, and he's not a lot taller than I am, and that's not a tough bar to clear. But he's thick.
Yeah.
And like a brick. And I don't know. There's, yesterday, and as we're having this conversation, he had his first two hits yesterday in the loss to the Blue Jays. The day before, debut, makes a big diving catch, has a walk in his first plate appearance. Elvis was doing pregame with me yesterday and postgame, and he's like, first of all, I thought it was his brother, Roberto Osuna. Alejandro's a brother who played in the majors, now pitching in Japan. But he's like, he reminds me of Rugi. Which I understand why some people might hear that and think, oh no, because Rugi's career didn't keep ascending the way that I think we thought. But Rugi had two really good years. But I think he meant more just the way he kind of carries himself, the passion, the quiet passion, the energy, and then the body shape too, I think are the things that stood out to him.
Yeah, and at the end of Rugi's run, I felt like there was a lot of, there was a chip. Right. And so it was a real antagonistic sort of bravado, if you will, at the plate that we saw. But he had a way of taking a pitch, right? Taking a ball and stuff, and to be just almost a quick shuffle toward the mound and a glare out the pitcher.
Like before Soto made taking a pitch, there was Rugi.
Soto has his own thing, right? A little less menacing, but Rugi, part of his shtick was to menace that pitcher a little bit with that. But at the end, I really thought he was angry. Like, he just kind of seemed angry a lot. And there is a similarity. I agree with Osuna and the way he does it, but definitely not angry.
No,
Right? Definitely just a little more, I don't know what it is, just dialed in, focused.
Jose Bautista does not need to have his head on his swivel right now. I think he's okay.
Safe. He's safe. But the first thing I thought of was Soto when I saw him taking pitches in that first game in Chicago. I thought he's got a little bit, that little shuffle toward the mound, like no. But there's a sense that he's always ready. He's looking to pounce, right? He is a panther who is looking to pounce, and you get that sense when he takes those pitches. I love it. And I just thought his first big league at bat in Chicago. It's 7 pitches. It's a walk. Man, I don't know what it is. The ability to center yourself in that moment when all you want is your first big league hit. But it's just so cool to be able to take close pitches. No big deal. I'll get another plate appearance, so I'll have a chance to get a hit. Whereas I know for me, I can assure you, you know, um, I'd have been hacking, right? Because there is no guarantee I'm getting back to the plate. I never felt that way. But he has this great confidence about what he's doing and where he's going. And so far, it's been really fun to watch, man. I was super excited when the opportunity popped up for him because I've been waiting for it since spring training. I think he's the type of guy this team desperately needs, right? They desperately need somebody with a little attitude and a little energy.
Yeah. No, it stole the words right out of my mouth. The attitude, youthful energy, plays the game hard. Here's the reality. No secret about it. This team offensively has not come close to living up to what the expectation was. And you can look at the numbers, right? And there are numbers that tell a story or certain stories. Baseball's unique in that, whereas in basketball, we talk about you share one ball. 5 guys really have to work together. Football, same thing. Hockey, same thing. Baseball, you don't have to work together in the same way, but there is sort of like a connectivity that I think the best lineups seem to have. And I don't know that it's measurable, but I also think that to some degree you need guys who just have the ability and maybe command the respect. And I'm not saying Alejandro Osuna is the guy to do this on his 3rd day in the big leagues, but they're going to put their foot down either like literally or proverbially and say, enough. Like, this is not us. We're better than this. And I think in order to do that, you have to have guys who are ready to just jump into the fray. And I think he's one of those guys. I think Alejandro Osuna could be a guy down the road. It's like, yeah, he leads, we follow.
Mhm.
But like he's one of these guys who I think, yeah, intangibly can help a team that's scuffling. And the energy, the attitude, tough to quantify, but it just seems like this team needs some of that.
Well, yes, they do. And he definitely has it, brings a different personality to the mix. Um, but the other thing he does, though, is he brings a different approach to the mix. And, when you look at how this team is constructed, especially on the offensive side, so there's some guys who you're like, well, okay, Garcia's game is to attack and to go big. We can live with some strikeouts, but we don't wanna constrain him
Right.
in certain ways, right? It's just not gonna be conducive to him contributing. Um, but they all can't be like that, right? Berger's a similar guy, right? We'll accept some strikeouts because he's got power, etc. But if you if you just keep doing that down your entire lineup, you're in trouble.
That's where maybe the connectivity kind of comes into play,
Correct.
having some balance.
Yes, and he gives the team balance. He'll attack. He's got power. He's got speed. But he has not only a willingness, but it's a design on his end to be selective and to make a pitcher work. Yeah. So the opening game against Toronto, right? His 2nd game as a Ranger. The 1st inning, Rangers are retired in order on 6 pitches. The 2nd inning, the Rangers were retired in order on 6 pitches. So Gosman's 12 pitches into the outing. We go to the 3rd inning, and it's Osuna leading off. He saw 5 pitches. Wasn't his best at bat of the night, but he saw 5 pitches in that at bat, which damn near equaled innings 1
Yeah.
and innings 2 by the entire team. So, like, that matters. You have to be able to stem a little bit of that momentum the other pitcher has. So, anyway, there are a lot of things about him that you love. Defensively, the play he made in Chicago, coming in hard. Those are big energy plays, big energy moments that I think teams feed off of.
You mentioned if you were making your major league debut, you'd come out hacking. Do you
Yeah.
remember the last time you were in a batter's box with like a legitimate, not like, doesn't have to be someone trying their very best, but like a pitcher, a catcher, an umpire, and you're swinging, not slow pitch softball.
No, no, no. Like in a baseball game. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember it. Yeah. I mean,
You were like, what was your last?
I don't remember the last at bat.
Okay, so I still it crushes me.
I'm sure it was a strikeout, but go ahead.
No, it was not. It
No, mine.
almost was worse. I almost like would feel better if I was just going all out and I struck out, just laying it all out there. USC alumni game,
Uh-huh.
they let me play even though I was a manager. I offered to like do alumni laundry, which was, but they're no, you can get in there. And some of the guys were like encouraging me to go get an at bat. Well, I'm a lefty, and of course I have to face a lefty, right? Like I can't face a righty, left on left. A guy named Bob Wheatley, who was pitching for USC at the time. And first pitch, I take a fastball right down the middle. Like, what am I doing? And I knew at that point I was cooked. Next pitch is a curveball. I must have hit it 3 feet in front of the plate. Like no more than, but it was fair. It's 3 feet. Thrown out, and that was my only at bat. And I have not had like an actual at bat of any kind since. And like slow pitch softball bats, like that doesn't count.
No.
But a part of me, it still bothers me because I didn't go and swing at the first pitch. He threw a fastball right down the middle. It was like 88. Like I might have, at that point in my life, I think I could have made contact.
But did you even have the wherewithal to think about what he might throw you on the first pitch?
I thought, yeah, but the problem was from the time I stepped into the box to the time he threw the pitch, which might have been 15 seconds, I don't know. I probably overthought it 17 different ways.
Yeah.
Like he knows that the only chance I have is if he throws me a fastball, but maybe because I like Bob and Bob likes me, he knows maybe he's going to give me one to hit. No, he's going to throw me a curveball because he knows he doesn't want to be the guy that gives up a hit to the former manager. So he's really going to go high. I mean, I thought about it every which way.
Yeah, that's why, yeah. So this takes us right back to Osuna, right? You just can't do that.
Yeah,
right?
you just gotta go. Yeah,
you can't think like that, right? It's impossible. So, got to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing I had going when I played baseball as a youngster. It's like, I certainly wasn't thinking. And I have a number of coaches and teammates who could definitely back up that claim. No, he didn't hurt us by thinking. That was definitely not a problem.
Oh man, we were on polar opposite ends of the spectrum there. We got Jack Leiter coming. We're gonna talk baseball with Jack. Maybe get into some thoughts on our conversation with Jack, and then some hitting stuff on the back end. Does that work?
That sounds like a plan. We'll keep talking.
We'll still be talking Rangers.
We'll
All right, when we come back, we'll chat with Rangers pitcher Jack Leiter. But first, a message from our friends at Whataburger.
Okay, Jared, Whataburger's Mushroom Swiss Burger is basically a mushroom lover's dream. 2 layers of perfectly grilled mushrooms, creamy au jus sauce, and cheese so melty it should have its own fan club. Try it before it's gone. All right, so that time has arrived. Very excited to have Jack Leiter with us. Jack, thanks for taking the time. A lot of people ask you about your dad, something you've got to deal with. I want to know about your mom. So tell us about Lori. Was she an athlete? Was she, did she ride you hard when you were a kid? Like, give us a little insight into mom.
She's your typical loving mom that just wants the absolute best for her kids. She's the best. Any life advice off the field, it's mom first. And I would say she's helped me with my mindset in a lot of ways on the field too. She high school athlete, softball, cheerleading and whatnot, but no, nothing crazy in terms of like college athletics, but she's a Florida Gator, so she raised me as a Florida fan for my younger years. When we lived in South Florida, we'd drive up for some Florida games when Tebow was there, and it was a cool atmosphere, obviously the swamp. And yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about my mom. She's probably the most important person in factoring my progression and getting to where I am today.
Who was louder at games, your dad or your mom?
Honestly, I think they're both probably pretty quiet.
Yeah.
My dad's definitely quiet. He keeps to himself, and he always has charted my games, and he's thinking along with me, and he's almost in his head out on the mound with me. So he's definitely quiet. There's been a few times where like the umpire makes a questionable call against me, and I've heard him kind of come on, but besides that, no, he's not loud. And I mean, my mom's probably just cheering, and sometimes she's crying, and all she's emotional. So
crying, good or bad tears?
Yeah, just proud tears.
Okay,
proud tears.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so your dad now, a lot of TV work, right? doesn't seem like there's any hesitancy to jump in front of the camera. Like it's very natural for him. You're here, you're in front of cameras, but it doesn't seem like that's your personality. Like you love being in front of the cameras, but you seem to have the same like analytical mind that your dad does. Like hearing you talk through your starts, but the more like reserved, calm nature, does that come from your mom?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I think my dad and I, like general personalities, there's a lot of opposites. He's just a never-ending ball of energy, and I'm more. I try to keep it more even keeled, just stay in the middle. Not quite ride the highs and lows. Not that one's good or bad, but that comes from my mom. She's definitely even keeled and more calming personality.
I was asking him, we were walking over here about his sisters. I mean, you're one of 4, right? And you got 3
Three
sisters.
sisters.
All right, so what's that like growing up? I mean, I grew up with 2 brothers. You grew up with 2
Two
brothers?
brothers. Yep.
What's it like growing up with 3 sisters?
When I was really young, like not old enough to fend for myself, I've been told that they would kind of use me as a doll almost and dress me up when I was a baby. So that couldn't have been fun for the baby version of me. But
Dave tries to do that to me these days,
as,
but
Every
yeah.
now and then.
as I've gotten older, it's been great. Just a different perspective on things. Obviously, I'm around a lot of guys in the clubhouse and working out at Vandy in the off seasons. It's a lot of that. So it's a different constant perspective from my sisters in a good way.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I don't know how I loved growing up with brothers. Did you ever think like, that would have been cool to have a
Oh
brother
yeah,
to go,
yeah.
yeah,
All I
roughhouse with?
wanted was a brother growing up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted somebody to play catch with other than my dad,
Yeah.
and wrestle with, and play football with, and do all the brotherly things. But yeah,
Was there a sister that you roughhoused with? That like, did that ever happen?
not really. My oldest sister's 5 years older than me, and then the next oldest is 1 year younger than her, so about 4 years older. And then the younger one's 5 years younger than me. So there's a 10-year gap
Okay.
between oldest and youngest, and pretty much 5 both ways. So um, no, there wasn't much of that. My oldest sister was a good athlete. She played volleyball up through high school and club in college. So um, if there was a sister to play catch with, it would be her, and I've done that a couple times.
Yeah.
I mean, when you know, one day maybe you get married, like they're gonna have to go through the ringer, right? I feel like, you know, they're gonna have to pass
Oh
like a
boy.
bunch of tests to get approval of little bro Jack, or I guess big bro for your youngest. That I mean, that would be
I
intimidating.
feel like girls are a little cooler about that stuff though. Like guys are really protective of their sisters.
Yeah,
Right. They don't want any guy coming over the house or whatever.
yeah. I would say guys are more protective. My sisters are probably more judgmental than I am. So yeah, I would say there's a bit of a ringer to get through the Leiter family.
So you don't run a tight ship when they introduce a boyfriend, fiance, potential husband. You're like, hey, if you're happy, I'm happy. You don't like grill them or like give them like the Jack Leiter quiz or anything.
No, I mean they're if my sisters like them, they treat them well, they trust them, then those are good qualities for me. And I can get along with a lot of different people. There's not a lot of people or personalities in this world that I dislike. So
What if they're a Patriots fan? I mean, you're a Dolphins fan, so what if they're like a Patriots fan or a Bills fan, some like
well,
in division rival?
one of my sister's boyfriends is from Boston, so he is a
Oh,
Patriots
there you
fan.
go. Okay.
And yeah, there's a friendly rivalry that goes on there for sure.
Oh man. Hey, so normally we do like to spend most of this time just talking to guys, getting to know them a little bit. But I will say, like, as I was thinking about having you in today, I have 100 baseball questions. Do we want to go heavy baseball?
No, that's a few baseball questions.
So we'll start with this: the kick change. Show us a little bit of this whole kick change business. I'm intrigued at how, because now a lot of guys throw this pitch.
Yeah.
So show us the grip and what the idea is.
I mean, I think it's continually evolving for me because it's the new pitch, and the only way to learn it is by throwing it. And as a pitcher, you only have so many bullets, so it's not like I'm out there during the week throwing 500 of them. So
Right.
a lot of the learning comes from the game. But the idea of it is just along the two-seam grip, the train tracks here, and basically somebody a lot smarter than me figured out that people who struggle to throw changeups and get them to have depth or arm side movement, which has been me. I've tried every changeup grip throughout my life. Typically, the middle finger's playing too big of a role, and causing it to get on the wrong axis, get you behind the ball, for whatever reason. So by basically knuckling the middle finger, you're setting the ring finger to play a bigger role naturally. So by throwing it the same way I normally would, just with that middle finger knuckled, it just sets it on a better axis and gets that kind of side spin on its own without having to think about it and pronate and manipulate the ball. So it's a way to basically just throw a fastball in my head and have it come out like a changeup, which is ideal for all pitches, all off-speed pitches. But exactly where, with the pinky, the index, the thumb, it's kind of a learning game.
Yeah.
But that's the fun part about pitching is, one small tweak could make a pitch, all the world of difference.
So it seems like, because we've seen a couple other guys now around the league throw it as well, that for years, right, the idea of the changeup was, let's differentiate from the fastball probably 8+ miles per hour, right? Throw off that timing. It looks like a fastball, but it comes in slower, and now they're all cattywampus. But you've thrown it a number of times at pretty high velocity, and I've seen a lot of other guys throw it at high velocity, maybe a couple, 2-3 mile per hour difference from the fastball. And so it seems to me that the pitch itself is a lot more about the movement, right? The late movement than it is the speed differential. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I would say, like, throwing it to some of our guys in spring training and live VPs, whatever it might be, a lot of them have just called it a splitter, just based on their eyes, what they see. They're just saying, yeah, your splitter looked good today, whatever it is. And obviously to me it's a changeup, but that just tells me that the way it plays, like a splitter oftentimes, which is just a hard pitch that kind of looks like a fastball as long as you can make it look like a fastball, and then kind of dives, falls off the table. But again, it is a learning pitch. I'm still figuring out exactly the feel I want for it, and ideally the command of it gets better and better, and then it becomes more and more of a usable pitch because when I've commanded it, it's been really good in terms of foul ball, swing and miss, or a take for a strike. So it's kind of always serving a purpose as long as it's in a good area.
Yeah, the other day, I thought that was one of the interesting things the other day. You you tried a couple early,
Mhm.
and apparently they weren't to your liking.
Yeah.
And so you shed it for a couple of innings. And then the last inning, man, you were change up heavy. And it's like you found it, right? So the field wasn't there, it was chilly. And then all of a sudden you got it. Like, what allows you to just discover it later in that same game?
Yeah, that's one of the interesting games. They say the old saying, if you have 30 starts, 10 of them you got nothing, 10 of them everything's going your way. The 10 in the middle are
Yeah.
kind of the make or break. And I felt like that was one of the games where I didn't really have anything going in terms of feel. A lot of it was just attack with what you got and figure it out along the way. And obviously, outs are king. You're just trying to find outs any way you can. And going back out for that fifth inning, it's like, in between innings is kind of your time to reflect, and it's like, we haven't used the changeup much. It could get us some easy outs here. Obviously, at this point, ideally, then I wanted to go 6. Got 2 quick outs in the 5th, and then 2 long at bats kind of ended the outing. But yeah, I think the more I can use that pitch, I think I can get deeper into the game without having to kind of try to bully hitters with the fastball slider combo. You know, mixing curveballs and use the changeup more than just mixing it in. And now you have the hitters kind of off balance guessing.
I want to ask you about your sinker. It's kind of more like a runner, right? I mean, it's not a pitch that, grow up, think of a sinker. It's a ground ball pitch. You don't necessarily use it in that way, but it seems like it plays off your four seam really well. What's the thought process of that pitch, and uh, how do you feel like it's impacted you this year?
Yeah, it's basically another pitch to take the pressure off the four seam slider combo. I'm aware that the four seam and slider are probably my best pitches, and aware that hitting's hard, but also the hitter's approaches are really good at this level. And if you become too predictable and kind of too one dimensional, I think they put together good at bats, and that's what I saw at the end of last year. With how good my fastball is metrically, it was getting kind of crushed. And that comes down to a predictability thing. And how do you become less predictable? You mix other pitches. And this two seam was kind of, it feels natural. It's been in the zone a lot this year. And even when I kind of end up missing glove side, it's a funky fastball spinning a different direction, and it's still a fastball. So it can beat them with movement, it can beat them with location, and it could beat them with velocity. So you kind of have three cracks at winning the pitch when you're throwing that pitch. So I mean, I've liked it a lot, and we've used it.
So one of the things that has always impressed me about Jack is, I mean, there's obviously an aptitude and an ability to talk baseball, right? I mean, just listen to him break down the pitching. But you said something at the beginning there, about last year and fastballs getting crushed. This might be the silliest thing, but spring training 2024, you gave up a home run. Jack's trying to prove himself, right? He's trying to establish himself. It's spring training 2024. It hadn't yet made your major league debut. A lot of attention on him. He's pitching. It's one of those windy days in Surprise. I think you gave up what would be a routine fly ball any other situation, and it just barely got over. Ended up being a home run. I want to say it was a 2-run home run because some guy got on and some blew a batter before. I remember I went up to you the next day and I was like, "Hey, great job at." It stinks. You kind of got hosed with that fly ball turned home run. And it would have been very easy for you to say, yeah, I mean, my luck or whatever. That sucked or this or that. You're like, yeah, but I shouldn't have been in that spot. I don't remember what it was, but they were saying about the sequence and maybe you doubled up. You shouldn't have doubled up or whatever. It was such no, I'm going to look in the mirror first. And it would have been so easy for you to just be like, yeah, I mean, that's a fly ball anywhere else. I've always found that very refreshing about you is that you're not afraid to say, hey, I got to be better. And I can't believe anything other than that's been a part of your growth. And it's also allowed you to deal with some of the challenges because you know that they're going to come. And it doesn't seem to bother you to acknowledge, yeah, I wasn't at my best. Or, yeah, this start, I didn't have this. But it's all going to be okay because I'm going to put in the work and get better. I know it's a I don't know, a long-winded way of saying that, what exists between your ears, it just seems to me is maybe your biggest weapon.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is the long-term confidence. If you're confident in your routine and your process, which I am, and the work that I'm going to be putting in constantly on a day-to-day basis, the short-term results affect you less in a way. Obviously, there's windows and pockets throughout a season where you're in a game and I don't feel good about this slide or whatever it is, and maybe the confidence is kind of wavered for that particular moment. But over the long run, when you trust your process and routine, it's I'm going to figure this out, whether it's next start, next pitch, or 5 years from now. If you're not going to quit, you're going to figure it out. And I think that's the coolest thing to fall back on is okay, maybe things aren't going well for me this inning or this start or even this month, but it's as long as I keep going and keep pushing forward and learn from the losses and learn from the wins, it's always going to be progress.
Yeah, it's funny because, well, number one, never skip leg day, right? Obviously. I do want to ask you who can hit that rack harder, like you, Evo, Wyatt's got to be in there. I mean, there's some strong leg dudes, but you're in the mix, boy. You also had that crazy extension on the fastball, right? So you've got the high velocity, but also that extension, which gets you closer and allows 99, 100 to play up. Now, has that always been the thing for you, or was there a point at which somewhere you learned oh, extension is also helpful? Let's work on adding a little length down the mound. How does that play?
I mean, I do think a lot of my development comes back to being a younger guy and middle school, early years in high school, being very undersized and trying to almost compensate, but find a good way to compensate for being a smaller guy, not as big, not as strong, not as physical as the other guys my age. And a lot of that became a blessing and a curse because, again, did control what I could control, worked getting my lower half as strong and explosive as possible, being loose and whippy with my upper half, which created this delivery where I kind of explode off the mound and get far down the mound and as a result get extension. It was never anything that I was directly chasing, but yeah, it could be a blessing and a curse because moving that quick, it's a lot of explosive moving parts that you're trying to control, and pitching is such a fine art. But that's the beauty of it at the same time, and it's just trying to figure it out. And basically, we're all trying to master something that's pretty much impossible to fully master because you're always working on something, and that's been the eye-opening thing about being around all these veteran guys is everybody's always working on something, which is cool to see.
I love the word art in there too, and I hope guys actually take time to think about what that word means because we use it a lot, but I do think pitching really is an art because it's so much fun what you get to do, how you can manipulate an at-bat and stuff. We talk a lot about two-strike approaches for hitters, and this year, way too much we've been talking about it, right? It is a constant conversation, but it always has been for hitters. Two-strike approach, two-strike approach. What do you do? What do you do differently with two strikes? I don't know that I've ever asked a pitcher to, do you have a two-strike approach? And when you get to two strikes on a guy, does that, what's your thought process at that point?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never really heard it framed as a two-strike approach for a pitcher, but it does make sense. And that has become an emphasis because for a lot of my starts this year, I'm getting to two strikes very well and very efficiently, and then putting guys away has become kind of an issue. And a lot of the time for me, basically a lot of my things that I'm working on and have been working on throughout my whole career come back to not needing to do more, oftentimes do less. And especially with two strikes, that's become a conversation where it's like, it doesn't have to be the nastiest slider I've ever thrown. I don't have to, embarrass the guy with the nastiest pitch or the hardest fastball or a perfectly dotted 99 down and away. Like, those are great and they'll come, but when I chase them, once I get to 0-2, all of a sudden you've lost your advantage and you're in 2-2, 3-2 counts, even though you did your job to get to two strikes quick. So I think it's just staying on the attack. Watching guys like Scooble and Skeens and some of the guys that are having the most success in these recent years, they're just as aggressive with two strikes as they are, with no strikes, and they're just trusting their stuff and taking their chances that it's not going to get hit even if it's in the zone. And I think that's an adjustment that I'm currently working on.
That whole Greg Maddux thing, right? I don't know if you guys remember that when he was talking about he and Leo Mazzoni arguing about that, and he was like, "I've got two strikes on the guy." He was up 0-2, and Leo's like, get him to fish at something. It's like, why? He's like statistically, he's in his worst position. I'm going to throw him a strike and let him get himself out. Yeah, you don't need the strikeouts. Anyway, I think it's a fascinating part of what you guys go through out there trying to figure it out all the time. No one wants to let anybody hit anything, I get, because guys can do damage.
Yeah, my dad said something about that recently. It was a quote from somebody else, but it's not about missing bats, it's about missing barrels, which is just essentially not always chasing the swing and miss, but finding ways to get off the barrel. A weak ground out on the first pitch is better than a 9-pitch strikeout.
Yeah.
We get that Nathan Eovaldi, right? I mean, he's pitching tonight as we're having this conversation. He'll get a lot of weak contact. He does get swings and misses, but I mean, he works from ahead and gets hitters back against a corner, and good luck, right? I'm curious. Last year there was the Aaron Judge at bat here, which it was just so much fun to watch you go toe to toe with Judge and get the better of him. You seem like a guy who you got a Rolodex of all the plate appearances that you've had maybe this year or whatever. Is there one that, for whatever reason, like you really loved the way you executed against this guy, or is a big spot, and just something that stands out to you about a particular at bat that is top of mind?
Opening weekend against the Red Sox, that was a cool outing for a lot of reasons. My first major league win, and that was our first win of the season, and it was just an exciting weekend. and there were some cool at bats within there. Some punch outs on Devers and one on Bregman, and just guys that, you know, I kind of grew up, not necessarily grew up, but the last 5-6 years coming up through the levels, watching these guys dominate the league. It's cool to face those guys, but it's also cool to see that the name, as a fan, I'm a fan of the game, but the name on the backs of these jerseys is just that. It's just the name on the back of the jersey, and it's what have they been doing. And then once you dive into the scouting reports, you're seeing them as the pitcher side for how to attack them versus, oh, this is Alex Bregman. I've seen him, you know, do all these crazy things watching on TV. Now you're on the mound, they're in the box. What's the game plan, and what pitch am I going to execute here? And then once it becomes that, it's less of a starstruck mindset and more of a, all right, I'm doing a job here.
Yeah, just facing another guy in a jersey.
Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned being a fan, you know, and knowing these guys and names and everything. I've always wondered, because you seem twitchy athletic out there, right? I see some things that make me think, oh, I bet he could break an ankle on the basketball court, or, you know, whatever. Did you play other sports? Did you dabble in the other adventures as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, as a young kid, I played all the sports from, you know, tennis, soccer, basketball, football. Basketball, football, baseball were always my three, though, that I loved as a fan and to play. And whether it was, you know, pick up football with my friends, pick up basketball, or organized. But once I got to high school, it was just baseball in terms of organized sports. But I love anything that's even semi-athletic related. I love the little games like ping pong, spike ball.
Ping pong.
I try to love golf, but that's just a tough one for me.
You're struggling with that.
Yeah, it's I don't commit enough to it. Like, some of these guys are playing on the road every road trip, and it sounds great in theory, and then they ask me to play, and it's my one off day in the last 12 days. I don't know if I want to sit on the golf course for 4 hours, but in the off season I try to play before it gets cold in Nashville.
Yeah.
Can you dunk?
I can, yeah.
That's and how tall are you?
6 foot. Yeah, barely a little over 6.
He said I can. Like, he can dunk easily.
Yeah, he can.
Yeah, we go back and forth in the clubhouse on, like, who can jump the highest in the clubhouse, and I think it's me.
I think it might be.
DeGrom thinks it's him, though.
Who?
deGrom thinks it's him?
Yeah.
Corbin, apparently back in the day, I mean, he apparently can get up, right?
Yeah,
he's
a good
real
basketball
natural.
player.
But I bet you and deGrom would have put in more work on that. Like, Corbin's one of those guys, like, stuff just comes to him.
Yeah.
You know, he's just good at stuff.
I don't know that we'll ever see a dunk off between the three of them. But
my thing is, I can't do cool dunks because when I jump, like, on the run off of 1 foot, like most people can only dunk when they, like, run and jump into it off one. I haven't figured out how to jump high out of that yet. The only way I can dunk is, like, basically standing off 2 feet. Which
is more impressive.
Yeah.
Which some people say is harder, but it's the only way I can do it.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
once I figure out how to, I guess, pretty much just dunk more athletically, I'll be able to do cooler things, probably.
Dunk contest champ right there.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Although Jacob's got length. He's got all sorts of things going.
If we're reaching for something,
Right.
I think he gets me a little bit. But in terms of height off the ground, I think I got him.
I'm gonna have to put him through a combine next year or something.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
We do talk about that, and who's the fastest, you know,
Right.
who would run the fastest 40. I think me again.
You think?
From the pitchers.
Okay, but not like
From the pitchers.
What about, like, why? Because we used to have Jake Diekman, who just retired, and when we had Jake Diekman, we also had Delino DeShields, but there were guys that said that Jake would outrun Delino. Like, he was a pitcher, so we never saw it. But, like, do you think you could get close with Wyatt or Evan or one of these speedsters?
My start is it's my best skill with running.
Okay.
So if it's a 20-yard sprint,
You got a
maybe.
chance.
Like, the shortest sprint you could think of, first step maybe.
See, that's what I mean. That's that explosiveness.
Yeah.
You're super twitchy.
But once it gets to the top speed, I don't think I compete with those guys.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, we got a million more things we could talk about, but you got to go to work. Thank you for
Yeah, thanks,
for
Jack.
hanging out.
Thank you.
All right, Jack. Next start is against the Cardinals.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, you're already starting to
Yeah.
work through the lineup and all
Little
that.
scouting report, bullpen today, so
Hornsby and
getting ready.
Pujols and all those
Yeah.
guys. Yeah,
That's right, usual.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Jack Leiter, our guest. Thank you.
If you love banana pudding, you've got to try Whataburger's Banana Pudding Shake. Back, but for a limited time only. All right, welcome back to Still Talking Rangers. We've rearranged things. I wish I was in Jack's chair. Maybe I'd get some of that athletic ability. I can't, 6 feet, he can dunk.
Easy from a standing position,
Which
right?
is even crazier.
Post him up, turn around, drop step, dunk. That's his move.
And he by
impressive.
the way, is a guy like if he, I don't know if he's got this type of skill set, but if he had like any level of like post ability, he's one of these guys who'd like get you down on the block and you'd be like, what's this guy? And then he backs into you, you fall like to the deck and he drop step dunk, he stares at you and just runs down the court.
And with that, again, like his lower body, I don't know if people appreciate how strong he is, man. He's worked really hard to develop the posterior chain, as it's known in sports, right? He is super, super strong. And he would just knock you to the other side of the lane.
We talked about extension with him. Well, okay, a guy like Randy Johnson gets great extension because why? He's 6'11" and his arms are like Inspector Gadget. How does a 6-foot guy get great extension?
It explodes off that.
It's
off
lower
that rubber
body
down
driving, right? Like that's like I wonder. I'd be curious. And some people are strong and maybe they don't like it doesn't show as much physically. Like Jack is like you see, but like if White Langford was a pitcher, I bet you could teach him or coach him into getting great extension with his lower body, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if there are any, like, I wonder if that's almost across the board that smaller pitchers, shorter pitchers who get great extension all are like uniquely strong below the waist.
I bet it's true because I think at the end of the outing, right, 5, 6, 7 innings, like that's each pitch is taking a lot of thrust to get down that far. His extension is damn near 7 feet.
Yeah.
Well, that's hard when you're 6 feet.
Yeah.
So he's getting down there hard, and that's because he's generating a lot of power with that lower body.
I know I asked a 5-minute question to him that led to this, but I just think that there are a lot of people who they're not good at looking in the mirror. They're not good at recognizing, like, I can look in the mirror and know that I asked him a 5-minute question. But like in any walk of life, right? Not just
For sure.
professional athlete, like
Right.
broadcasting. Young broadcaster, what am I good at? What am I not good at? I don't know if it's like a fear of acknowledging that you're not good at something, a pride. I don't know. I've never felt, and like this is a guy who's had pressure. His last name, Vandy, number 2 overall pick. He's never, since he's been with the Rangers, ever had a problem saying, yeah, I just wasn't good enough. And there's a value to that. I think, and it's not just the saying it, it's what it means, his willingness to say it. I'm just so impressed by him.
Well, because here's the thing, right? There's several ways that guys can do that. There are other guys who are self-critical, but in a way that you can see they're clearly beating themselves up, and they're not helping themselves.
Yeah.
There are ways to self-evaluate in a critical way to get better, and there are ways to do it that can be really damaging. He does it the right way. Now, he's talked a lot about, we didn't get into it today, but Harvey Dorfman's the mental ABCs of pitching. Great book. Any kid who's had any designs of pitching at a higher level, it's probably a book that they've been recommended or read. Certainly they should. It's a great book, and it's stood the test of time. I mean, it's an older book at this point. But the help of his dad, who'd been through a lot, he's learned, and he knows how to do it. It is the toughest part of the game. It's the toughest part, is dealing with the mental side of it. And so I think to some extent, guys don't get here unless they do have some command of that. The guys who get here who don't have command of that, are amazing physical talents, and you could only imagine how great they could be if they could harness that a little bit. But he's got a really powerful mix right now. Physically, he's quite good. He has he has elite stuff. There are certain metrics and ways of going about what he does that are elite, and he's got that good head on his shoulders. So he's set to do some really powerful stuff in the game, I think. We've already seen glimpses of it. That start he had in Cincinnati, brilliant. Start he had against the Astros recently, brilliant. I loved his last start prior to the St. Louis series because he only had 2 pitches that day. It's a cold, miserable day, and he only had 2 pitches, and he battled. And then he came back late and found the changeup, which is really hard to do. That takes a lot of maturity, a lot of growth, a lot of time to get to those levels. But we've seen him. I just go back to his debut in Detroit years ago when he was stalking the dugout 3 hours before the game. I thought, he's going to be out of juice before this game starts.
Like an energy drink. He was just,
But he's learned so much about himself in the game, and it's just awesome to see. He's obviously also a really great guy, as people got a chance to see.
Yeah, no, he really is. I think we've both really enjoyed getting
Yeah.
to talk to him, getting to know him. He's got some strong thoughts on the Miami Dolphins, what they should not do, what they've been doing wrong. So you
Yeah.
can always get him going on that too. I want to ask something about hitting with runners in scoring position because I've kind of had, I don't know, a realization here recently. I just don't care about that stat, which is a very weird thing to say. I'll explain why. But just pouring over numbers and we're all trying to figure out, what's going to get this team going. Not that we're going to coach it, but like what is missing? Where are the gaps? Why? And maybe even for our own benefit, trying to figure out some
Right.
level of hope or optimism. Hey, okay, because of X and Y, Z is going to happen. Well, whatever. Well, this team has not been good with runners in scoring position, but they also just have really struggled offensively. And I think I've decided that I don't love the like assigning credit or debiting a player because of their individual stat with runners in scoring position. Now, from a team standpoint, that stat is important because when you get hits with runners in scoring position, chances are you're going to score runs. So I'm not saying that like getting hits in those moments is not important. But like I wonder how many guys these days really do something materially differently when they're in the box with runners in scoring position that would then separate that part of their game versus their overall hitting, right? Like, so as an example, you get a guy who's really struggling with runners in scoring position, but he's a really good hitter. And it just so happens that so far that year, 50 games into the season, he's getting his hits, but not in those spots. I tend to think, it's case by case, but I tend to think for a majority of players, that number will eventually come together. There are certain guys who I think of the game differently or thinking at bat differently in those spots. They maybe are more bat control inclined. Maybe they'll do something differently in that spot. I also think that hitting with runners in scoring position is it's a tough stat because, all right, runners at first and second, nobody out. Yesterday, Adolis struck out. All right. What happens if Adolis flies out to right and moves a runner to third? He's still an 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position. Now, if there are 2 outs, that fly out kills the inning. The hit doesn't. But so that part of it and just the general, I don't know how many guys play the game differently in the box with runners in scoring position. If you tell me a guy does, and you can say, hey, the reason you should take Dave Raymond's numbers with runners in scoring position seriously because he clearly changes his approach. He plays to the situation. He goes the other way if that's what they're getting, whatever it might be. Then I'd say, all right, I'll look at Dave's, but then I'll find you 5 other guys who an at bat isn't at bat to them. And that's just the way the game has evolved. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just don't know that I love looking at like a player now and say, hey, he's good with runners in scoring position or he's bad because I think guys are just who they are.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a little bit to that, certainly. But at the same time, you could take a guy, and I don't know what his numbers are, to be honest with you, off the top of my head. Struggling this year anyway, but take Adolis Garcia. All right. Does Adolis Garcia do anything differently with runners in scoring position? And you could say, I don't think so. Right. But the numbers might look very different, right? Well, here's one thing that you might say about Adolis. And again, I'd have to look at the numbers to see if this is the case. It's possible. It wouldn't shock me to find out that Adolis, with runners in scoring position, gets a little more amped up about trying to be a bigger hero. And Lord knows he's been the hero so many times. And that his strikeout numbers are higher, that his batting average is lower, et cetera, right? His success rate is dampened, in part because of this tendency to want to do, quote unquote, too much, right? Now, statistically, you could say like, there's just, you don't have enough sample to really say that with certainty. But, that's sort of the problem with statistics too, right? Is they don't tell you everything. And I think as a manager or as a coach, even as a broadcaster to some degree, you watch enough things closely and you know the personalities well enough and you begin to see tendencies, I think you can make some conclusions. Some guys, in the case that I just laid out, maybe get, off balance by the pressure of the situation or trying to do too much in the situation. Other guys do simplify, choke up a little bit, crowd the plate a touch. Brett Boone is a classic example. So it's interesting you bring it up because, with the Boone now as the hitting coach for this team, like his thing with 2 strikes was get your little tootsies right on the edge of the plate, choke up an inch or two, lean over that son of a gun. Don't give him any plate to throw to. You throw over the plate, you're probably going to hit me. So they're away, and you're just ready and waiting to go away and just bang, hit it the other way and whatever.
And that's what I wonder how many guys.
I think some guys do.
What percentage? And it's a fool's errand question.
It is a fool's errand question.
What, if you had a guess?
20%.
Okay, so 80% probably approach things in the 6th inning with runners in scoring position, similarly to the 3rd inning without.
Okay, I would say that it appears that way.
Yeah,
right.
I would agree.
But it may well be that they are trying or thinking in different terms up there, but they just don't execute it well or don't know how to execute it well or think too much or whatever. But there have definitely been examples this year where I've seen hitters, certainly for the opposition. And there was a stretch for a week or two where I saw Garcia doing it. Adolis was like RBI spot or man at third, less than 2 outs. I'm going to hit a fly ball.
Yeah, he had
3
like
sack
3
flies
sack.
in a week.
Yeah.
Hitting the other way a little bit for outs sometimes, but trying to move runners, etc.
Do you think we assign like when he does? Okay, let's just say Adolis tonight sack fly. I think, and I am guilty of this. I will raise my right hand. Wow, Adolis, great job playing to the situation, not trying to do too much. Do we know?
It's hard to know.
Or did he just happen to hit a fly ball? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
He feels like his job is to hit fly balls, right? Almost every hitter wants to hit the ball in the air. So when he does it and in those spots, does he get credit for it? Yes.
And he should.
Do we sometimes maybe over-assign credit for intent or do we imply intent there for him? Yeah, we probably do sometimes when maybe that wasn't the intent. But it's really hard to know.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know. And dadgummit, things move so quickly. I did see an at-bat the other day, and I can't remember who it was. It wasn't in our game. I was watching highlights. And he hit the ball the other way. But it was he got absolutely overwhelmed by the pitch, right? And he takes his swing, and it's like he's trying to hit it here. And he takes a swing, and his body falls through like he did hit it there, but the ball's going ding, 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 this way. And it sneaks through for a hit, and someone goes, opposite field hitting. I'm like, opposite field hitting?
Yeah.
He got the bat knocked out of his hands. But you know what? That's the power of putting the ball in play, which we talk about a lot. Just get the bat on the ball. Gives you a much better chance. And the Blue Jays have been a great example of that. They don't strike out. They're tough.
Yeah. Didn't strike out against Jacob deGrom.
How
First
about
time
that?
in his career. That's amazing.
Amazing.
Never won. And he's had a few, 2-inning out at whatever, because
Yeah.
of maybe a rain delay or an injury or something. First time ever, 229th career start.
Crazy.
No strikeouts.
Crazy. And it
And
was a legitimately long
Yeah.
outing.
And there were two strike opportunities. It's not like the Blue Jays swing at everything. They don't even let you get to 2 strikes.
But that said, they were aggressive.
Oh,
And
for
they
sure.
were putting balls in play quickly early in the game. And he even said
First
afterwards
pitch,
something like,
broke
I'm
the
like,
shed.
oh,
Yeah.
this might be a night where I can go deep and do some stuff
Yeah.
because they're going to make outs for me.
You're talking about, guys that maybe they get assigned. Elvis was, this is a few weeks ago. I think another time we do this is when a guy takes a close pitch, and someone, I forget who it was like, oh, that's a good take. And Elvis looked at me, he's like, that wasn't a good take. He had no clue where the pitch was. He just got lucky that it wasn't a strike.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of funny too, that sometimes they fool you, they kind of give you that feel like, I took that pitch, but their knees buckled, they had no chance.
Right. And then sometimes you can even argue like, what were you doing taking a pitch that close?
Yeah.
Whatever, full count. Like that was irresponsible. You should have been either trying to foul that off, continue the bat, whatever, or you're the guy, we need you driving that ball anyway. Adam Dunn used to take an absolute beating from Marty Brennaman in Cincinnati. Marty Brennaman, Hall of Fame announcer forever in Cincinnati, one of the greatest. And just, you talk personality. Marty was great. And he used to just bludgeon Adam Dunn on the radio all the time because he would take a walk with a man at third or bases loaded or whatever the case. And I remember once it was just that bad. And I think Adam actually drew the walk. And Brennaman on the air says something like, let's face it, Reds fans, Adam Dunn just is not a run producer. And I was like, wow, that's harsh for a guy who hits 40 bombs a year and drives in, 90 to 110. But the idea there being that certainly he could have done more.
He had similar thoughts on Votto, right? Didn't he kind of take exception to
Marty had
Marty's
hot
got
takes on a lot of
Yeah.
guys. He was awesome, man.
Yeah, one of the faces of the franchise. Wasn't good enough, I guess.
Yeah. But we all get frustrated.
Yeah.
We all get frustrated.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for this version of Still Talking Rangers?
No, runners in scoring position is an interesting conversation. I definitely, that's one we could do forever. What about the cold weather?
Yeah.
What is going on
Franchise
with cold
record.
weather?
Franchise record, games, first pitch,
sub 60.
sub 60.
We've already played more games in sub 60 degree weather this year than ever in the history of the planet.
I'm over it.
I'm over it. But also, by the way, more than any other team in baseball.
Right.
That's the other thing. So yes, it's unusual for the Rangers. We're not used to this, but it's more than anybody else has done this year. And
4-12 in those games, right? 4-12.
Something like that.
I think it was 3-12. Yeah.
Because it's on the road, and that has not been good in general. I do wonder. As you're hunting around for reasons that things happen, how much of an effect that has had. The other team has to play in those conditions too, yada, yada, yada.
But a team like the Cubs may be more accustomed to doing that. A team like the Mariners, more accustomed. I don't know. I mean, it's not like every one of our players is from Texas, but
yeah.
I mean, there were times that guys looked uncomfortable playing in 45 degrees with wind, and I don't blame them. I mean, that's
it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable in the booth.
Yeah. I'm ready for warmer temperatures.
Same, but we say that, and we're going to get smoked out in Tampa and
be like, I missed 45. Yeah,
I have people text me already about Tampa. Like, it's pretty bad. So.
And then we go back to Sacramento in August. That'll be fun.
Yeah, and Arizona, but that's indoors. But
yeah,
there'll be some hot ones. There'll be plenty of hot. We'll get our fair share.
We'll bring the heat.
Yeah, and we'll be still talking
Rangers through it all.
So,
yeah,
got that.
All right, I'm gonna try to land the plane a little bit quicker.
I'm looking forward to this.
So I'm gearing up. I've been waiting. Still Talking Rangers, episode 4. I want to thank Jack Leiter. I want to thank our entire production team for making this possible. I want to thank Dave Raymond for babysitting me. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. We'll be back next time, Still Talking Rangers.